Elsebound, Nocturnal Stories. Original dark stories for a mature audience, written and narrated by Elsebound. Story 1: The Last Passenger.
For the purposes of this story, I wish to remain anonymous. As a bus driver, I have encountered many strange people during my travels, but this one had to be the worst. One night, I was nearing the end of my shift. The last stop was coming up when I saw a lone figure stood beneath the weak glow of a street lamp, completely motionless. As I pulled closer, his head slowly turned to follow the bus. I was creeped out, but I didn't let it show. I opened the doors. That was when I got my first proper look at him. He was badly disfigured. I mean, he looked like something from a zombie film. It was that bad. But he still didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me. It was beginning to get under my skin. I became a little abrupt. "Hey buddy, are you getting on or not?" He stared at me for several more seconds. Then he smiled. A wide, toothy smile. He turned and began walking away. At first, I thought he had decided to leave. But then I realized he was heading towards the other door, which opened at the same time as the first one. He stepped onto the bus and made his way to the back. He never took his eyes off me. I turned towards the road and began driving, watching him through the rearview mirror. He was still sitting there, still staring. I forced myself to look back at the road. For a while, I resisted the urge to check the mirror again. But I suppose I couldn't help myself. I looked. The seat was empty. My stomach tightened. I glanced along the aisle, expecting to see him standing somewhere between the rows. But there was nobody there. Bus was still moving. We had not stopped. Neither door had opened. I checked the mirror again. Nothing. I told myself he must have crouched down, perhaps to pick something up. Or maybe he had moved to one of the blind spots behind the seats. I slowed the bus and called out, "Sir?" No answer. "Sir, you need to remain seated while the bus is moving." Still nothing. I pulled into a lay-by and put the handbrake on. The engine idled beneath me. For a moment, I stayed where I was. Every sensible part of me said not to go back there. But I was responsible for the vehicle, and I could not simply drive into the depot with a passenger hiding somewhere inside. I walked slowly down the aisle. The overhead lights flickered. "Sir?" The bus was empty. I checked every row. I even looked beneath the seats. Nobody. At the rear, the emergency exit was still locked. There was no possible way he could have left. I returned to the driver's seat and sat there for a while, trying to steady myself. Eventually, I convinced myself that I had imagined seeing him board. It had been a long shift. I was tired. Perhaps the light had played tricks on me. Then something tapped the window beside my head. 3 slow knocks. I froze. He was standing outside. His face was pressed against the glass. That smile stretched across it. I shouted and lurched away from the window, nearly falling from the seat when I looked again. He was gone. I did not wait around. I pulled back onto the road and drove towards the depot. The route took me through a quiet industrial area. All locked warehouses and empty yards. There was no traffic, no pedestrians, just the yellow pools of streetlight slipping across the windscreen. Then the bell rang. One clear chime, the back of the bus. I looked in the mirror. He was sitting in the last row again. My hands tightened around the wheel. The bell rang a second time, then a third. I kept driving. He stood, slowly, his head bent at an unnatural angle as if his neck could no longer support it. He began walking towards me. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The engine roared, but the bus seemed to slow. The road ahead stretched away into darkness, longer than it should have been. The same way I was past my window twice, then a third time. I looked at the clock on the dashboard. It read 12:17. A few seconds later, I looked again. 12:17. He was halfway down the aisle now. Each step made no sound. I tried the radio. Control. This is... Only static answered. Then beneath the crackling, I heard a voice. My own voice. Hey, buddy, are you getting on or not? The words repeated over and over again. The words repeated over and over, becoming slower and more distorted each time. The passenger stopped behind the driver's partition. I could see his reflection in the windscreen, his ruined face, his wide smile, and something else. He was wearing a bus's uniform, the same uniform as mine. He leaned towards me and whispered, "You'll never stop for me." A memory struck me. Not from that night, but from years before. A wet winter evening. A badly lit stop. A man waving frantically as I drove past because I was behind schedule and wanted to finish my shift. I remembered seeing him in the mirror, running after the bus. I remembered the headlights of a car coming around the bend. I remembered the sound behind me, the dull impact. I had told myself it could have been anything. I never reported it. The bus stopped. The engine died. The doors opened by themselves. Outside was not the industrial estate. It was the same lonely stop beneath the street lamp. Rain fell through the yellow light. A little shape lay on the road. The passenger stood behind me. "You left me then," he said. "I didn't know," I whispered. He leaned closer. "You didn't look." I was waking in the driver's seat at the depot. It was morning. A mechanic found me and called an ambulance. He said the bus had been parked in the yard all night, engine running, doors open. There was no passenger aboard. The company reviewed the CCTV. They said I had completed the route alone. They said nobody had boarded at the last stop. But there was one part of the footage they could not explain. For nearly 20 minutes, I appeared to be talking to somebody in the seat behind me. And just before the recording cut out, the camera captured a reflection in the window screen. A second driver, smiling. I resigned the following week. I have never driven a bus since, but sometimes late at night, I still hear the bell. A clear chime, then another. bending up. And when I look towards the window, I can see him standing beneath the street lamp, waiting for me to stop.
Story 2. Elsie's Head. When Granny Elsie kept talking about what she saw, what she thought had happened, Mum took her to the doctors. They said it might be the onset of dementia, and they gave her sedatives to take last thing at night, to calm her before sleeping, because the nightmares were awful. The pill sedating effects lasted about a week. I was sleeping well again, like before. Elsie shook her head, and I could see in her troubled blue eyes that she was then elsewhere. The old grandfather clock in the hall struck the hour of 9. My 83-year-old grandmother usually started making tracks for bed around 9:30 p.m. We were sitting in her small living room, with the one window facing the back patio and another door leading to the kitchen that led to the outside. Elsie had been an avid gardener. She used to grow vegetables to cook with and sold the surplus locally at the weekend fair. But for a few years now, she wasn't as sure on her feet, though still reasonably fit for her age. These days, she grew a few herbs, rosemary, sage, thyme and basil in her window boxes, and still potted about with her lovely scented roses in yellow, pink and peach colours, growing in containers and up the trellis by the back gate in the tall hedge. Elsie was crazy about flowers, and so they found their way into her living room, their likeness adorning every possible surface: rugs, walls, curtains, couch and cushions. The petals were rampant with clashing pattern colours. There was not one repeated clean motif, but a loud orchestra of clashing hues. New visitors to the living room were immediately overwhelmed. Elsie would then routinely tell them to sit down while she went about administering tea. Out came the tray of tea things, cups and saucers smothered with crimson roses, and the rounded teapot with its painted hollyhocks climbing the walls. There was no escape. Sometimes the family joked about the War of the Roses, though mostly we ignored it. It was the norm here, we were used to it, and the living room flora almost became as invisible as the soil beneath a flower bed. Elsie, with her faraway gaze, sat in the rocking chair by the window, overlooking the roses on the patio. Her usual restful spot, day or night. She enjoyed not only the lovely scent of her prized roses, but their beautiful petalled faces. In the summertime, the window would be left ajar, and the scent of roses would drift into the living room. But it was night time now, a little after 9 p.m. All was covered in darkness on the patio. "Elsie," I said softly. Her cornflower blue eyes flickered, and she was back in the small living room. "Pardon, did you say something?" I gently patted her hand, the one where she still wore her wedding ring, embedded in her skin. "You were telling me about the new pills. Make her some tea, will you, love?" As we sipped the hot milky tea Elsie now braced, said, "At first I thought I was imagining things. I'd fallen asleep in this rocking chair, and suddenly awoke to something. A noise, perhaps. I looked through this window, but it was too dark to really see the roses. It's just looking out there, out of habit, through the net curtains. All you can see are the dark shapes of things. The potted roses, the garden ornaments, and bird bath. The dark shape of the tall hedge where the gate is. The trellis beside the gate with the pale yellow roses climbing up it. At first I thought there had grown more roses, but it was more pale and the shape much larger than a single rosehead, and more singular and rounded than a cluster of roseheads. Then I thought it must be a new cat. It sort of moved like a cat. Not moving slightly in the breeze, it absolutely moved. Pacing, sneaking along the top of the hedge. Like it was going somewhere. Then the grandfather clock struck and I realised how very late it was. So I went back to bed. I didn't really want to imagine what that thing was. I didn't want to press Elsie for any more details of the strange sighting in her back garden. I only knew otherwise from my mum that she had seen something, and it had left her frightened. Elsie was a really practical kind of woman, not taken to flights of fancy, so it was concerning to the family to see her in this unusual, frightened way. I had been sleeping at Elsie's for a week now, ever since she started taking her new pills. The family wanted to keep a closer eye on her, even though some of us lived on the same street. I'd made myself a bed with a loose cotton sheet, pillows, and a light summer quilt on the second sofa by the wall, opposite to and overseeing the rocking chair window. The netted curtains hung over the window as usual, day or night. It was a thin, quite transparent white lace, with cutouts of bluebells, set in elongated diamond shapes. If there was a fuller moon, as it was then, more of the patio lit up, the moon brightly skirting over the top of the high hedge, the one with the gate set in it, and the rose trellis right next to it. It took me a couple of nights to get more used to the War of the Roses decor, but by the third night I had become more settled. That is, until Elsie telling me what she did. It was a couple of hours later after that conversation, and I still could not get settled for sleep. No matter if I slept on my back or either side. At last I got up and poured myself a glass of wine, and with the lights off, sat in the rocking chair. I don't know why I looked out the window. It was surprisingly well lit on the patio by the moon's illumination. I could make out the distinct shapes of the wrought iron bird bath, the garden ornaments beside it, the round patio table, and its 4 chairs. The softer shapes of the roses in their containers. The darker, more intense silhouette of the rose trellis and tall hedge, standing about 7 feet tall. Then I noticed something move. It was slight in movement, and I couldn't at first see what it was. There had been a whitish blur, a quick movement above the hedge, just where the gate, thankfully shut and locked, was below. Then a voice right beside me said, "It's her head again." I almost swore at my own grandmother for making me jump like that, the wine still plentiful in my glass, raining drops in all directions, as if it were a sprinting rain cloud, and the living room a garden, which isn't too far-fetched when considering the number of flowers depicted everywhere. "Elsie, you almost gave me a heart attack." "Tell me about it." In my wine-damp pyjamas, I stood up to let Elsie sit down in the rocking chair. "Did you really just say head?" I asked her. "Head. Yes, a head. Though nobody wants to believe me. And we're looking at it right now." As my own eyes focused on the pale shape resting atop the hedge, no more than 9 yards from the window, indeed there was Elsie's head. It had indentations for teeth and a wide grin, a prominent long nose, a squarish jaw, jutting ears, and dark hollows for eyes. It was an ugly-looking mother. There was no more. No neck, no body, a preternatural morph of a skeleton and a dead living thing, only in head form. I dropped my empty wine glass, which softly rolled away and hid under the couch for the next month, quietly dealing with its own traumas. I really wished I hadn't seen it. You had to see it too, Elsie said, because no one was believing me. Our eyes were still transfixed on the head. It's like we daren't look away. The pale yellow light within it slowly pulsed. Then, as if it felt our gaze, it turned towards us, from its profile to its full face. "What is it?" I whispered to Elsie. "It's either a trick someone playing on us, or it's something else." "I'm afraid of it." "I'm glad we're inside the house," I told Elsie. "He was outside on the patio within the next few minutes." I couldn't let my grandmother face it alone, so I rushed out behind her. The head looked from side to side, at Elsie, then at me. It had no other expression than that of a grinning, half-there face. Elsie poked it with her walking stick. "Get away, you inhuman thing! You are not welcome here." The stick went through one of the hollow, dark eye sockets. The head winced, as if in some discomfort. I held on to Elsie, gripping her arm too tightly. The head arose from the top of the hedge, with 12 inches of air between them. It then turned around and hopped away, as if on invisible legs. We never saw it again. Except, in Elsie's dark humour, the floral-covered cushions on the couch were exchanged for covers depicting skulls.